Okay, microphone check. Hi and hello everybody. Please, I would welcome everybody from the back also to come to the front. There's a lot of seats here and we want to get close to the artist. It's really meet the artist. So please also from the back come to the front. You're very welcome to do so. Yeah, you at the table. And yeah, so I have the pleasure to introduce to you Anh Nguyen. Please give a big hand of applause to her.
Thank you.
And just to start it off, because it's still like you are from hip-hop culture and that's your background, and we bring hip-hop culture to the big theater institutions like Radialsystem and Tanz im August. And just to warm up a little bit, I wanted to ask you guys, what we do in hip-hop culture is like call and response, so question and answer. So if I say, how did you like kata? Then you say, they flow like water. And water, you have to say it a little bit like Bruce Lee, like water. Okay, so how did you like kata? Okay, we're gonna rehearse it one more time. I say, how did you like kata? And you say, they flow like water. How did you like kata? How did you like kata? Okay, nice. Okay, thank you. I think we're warmed up now. So, first of all, my name is Saman. I've been dancing also for 21 years, but this is not about me, but just to let you know that we might drift off into some insider talk. If you guys have questions of comprehension or just any type of questions, please intervene. I want to do this as interactive as possible and invite the audience to participate a lot. Still, I've prepared a few questions myself. First of all, I wanted to congratulate you. The piece was amazing, really, really great.
Thanks a lot.
I know a lot of the dancers from a battle context. They're like professional b-boys. Like, for those who don't know, most of these dancers are really the toppest, the highest level of competitive b-boys, so break dancers for non-insiders in France at the moment. So for me, it was amazing to see them on a theater stage and really surpass what I've seen from them in terms of expression and really like emotional content, as Bruce Lee would say, emotional content. So for me it was really moving and really amazing what you created from the fusion of these two backgrounds, and that's also my first question. You yourself, your background is from acrobatics and kung fu, and then you discovered breaking, right? And so my question would be like, how did this idea come about, and what do these two dance disciplines mean for you in terms of also movement philosophy and also how they have enriched your life? So what do kung fu and breaking mean to you?
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, I did a lot of martial arts, not necessarily kung fu first, but mostly capoeira and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I've done some gymnastics on a competitive level when I was a kid. I never really liked dancing when I was younger because I was more of a tomboy and I thought dance was something that you used to seduce people, and I really didn't like that kind of interaction. So I always stayed away from dancing and parties. But when I discovered breaking, which I discovered through some clips from rap music in the 90s, I was listening to US East Coast rap music, and there had some b-boys in it, and I never ever saw a b-boy close to where I was living, because I was not living somewhere where there were b-boys and b-girls, but I really related to it, because for me it was like a kind of martial arts, but with no partner. It was like a kata, like a training for a fight, and there was really this warrior-like beat, like the break beats or even the instrumentals of the rap music of the times was really warlike. So it really felt like something like a new martial arts. So I tried to get into it, but I didn't know anyone who was doing it. I knew where the b-boys were training in Paris, so I kind of went there, but always went around and never stayed. I just watched them. Then I lived for 1 year in Montreal for studying, and there I met some B-girls who at my capoeira class actually, and who got me into their trainings, and then I met the whole scene there. It was like in '99, something like that. And very quick, I was dancing with a lot of B-boys and B-girls. I got into a crew there, and then I came back to France, got into several crews, one then another. And so I discovered that it was a very unique community, the hip-hop scene, because it's very open, despite what some people might think from the outside. It's something that you can really get into whatever your background is. Because it's so rich in interactions, and there's a lot of things to compete for or do together. It's really a club, also a club thing, as well as a battle thing. So you have the two things, the collaboration and the competition. And I think the two things really go well together to create a really rich community that shares and also strives for progress and something. So it really felt amazing. I never left the scene, even though now I'm a mom and I have 2 kids, and so I dance a lot less. But I've been dancing with, for instance, Valentine, who's the girl in the show, in other shows, and also on the battle scene, like 10 years ago, until 5, maybe a little bit more years ago. And I've done a lot of shows with her for my company, and now she is on stage with other B-boys whom I met later, because most of them are a bit younger than me. But they're all, from the battle scene, and I really, it's really my goal is to show you, the audience, what it feels when you're inside that dance. Why do they dance? What do they feel? How are they together? And so I wanted to do that, but not just to bring. Not to bring something from outside of the culture, like a subculture or something, on stage and not change it. Just, I didn't want to do some journalistic work by showing what exists already in underground settings or in the clubs or the battles. I wanted to as you said, go further and show what they are deeply, and also give them space to express that and to create more moves. So I work a lot with workshops that I give them, like contact workshops, or things that I draw from my martial arts background. Some of them also have some background in martial arts, or things that I've done since, because I've been choreographing for 15 years now, so I give them a lot of workshops, and we improvise a lot, and I try to see how things fit together, how they fit together, and then I bring them to the stage. So for me, the way I work is I watch the dance, I watch what people are doing when they're dancing, not just the technique, but what spirit are they in, what are they doing, how are they expressing with the people who are near them, how are they expressing in terms of an audience or a watcher or no watcher, like a club, intimate thing. And so I try to pay attention to that and to use it in another way, but to make that express in a choreographic setting that means even more than what they were doing. It's like breaking things down into small pieces and putting them in a larger context that helps them be more understandable for an outside eye. Yeah, because usually breaking is something that you do, like you dance for 30 seconds, 1 minute on a very fast beat, and then you stop and someone else dances. So it's a real performance to dance for 1 hour on stage.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like the energy level throughout the whole hour was so high. I was always waiting for the moment when it would drop, but it didn't. So it shows that your team is really, really fit.
They are.
Yeah, and in the history of hip-hop culture, there's a lot of these links between martial arts and hip-hop and breaking. since in the Bronx, in New York, when hip-hop was born and where hip-hop was born, the kids were watching a lot of Kung Fu movies, which were like the most influential movies at the time. How did your research go for the piece? How did you look into a lot of these connections? Did you develop that a little bit further, or?
Yeah, I know that when breaking started in the Bronx in the 70s, 80s, they were watching a lot of movies, and some moves come from Kung Fu and other disciplines. It's not just martial arts, it's also gymnastics, yoga, everything. It's like syncretism. It's like you take the unconscious of the many communities that are together and try to make it into something that means something. So it's not just taking one thing and copying and reproducing. It's just seeing what has been done by other people in other cultures and making it resonate with who you are. And so the link is like something a bit tribal with a link to bouncing, to going back to the earth roots, and something very club-like with a spirit of sharing that's very important. So sometimes people, a lot of time people talk about battling, but the club feeling is even more important, at the root at least. And so
I love the party scene.
Where
everybody was shaking the hips all of a sudden, and that was amazing. Good break with the Kung Fu, with the martial arts.
Yeah, it was like this scene is meant to show that being in a club and dancing with a partner is also a kind of fighting and going along with the partner, and it has something of proving something to yourself and endurance and strength, and there's something to it, and letting go also. So I thought there was a similarity. So it was a kind of fight, of modern fight that I wanted to show in the show. But my husband is actually a martial arts teacher, so he helped me a lot with the research. And we did a bit of workshops. We did one workshop with Didier Bédard, who's a martial artist from France, and he's a master of Wing Chun, which is a form of Kung Fu, and it's a form that works for closed space fighting. So it's mostly arms and upper body. So that's very interesting to me, because breaking is mostly, it's the whole body, but you usually stand on your upper body parts and make your legs and hips move around. So it was a challenge to make the upper body parts move also in a fight-like manner with that dance, which is mostly coming from the hips.
Yeah. We'll do this a little bit later, because hip-hop culture and especially breaking has a lot of like pedagogical parts to it. There's the each one teach one philosophy, which means that everybody who learns something in the culture has to pass on something. So we'll do a little bit of a teaching session. You can show the audience a small kata a little bit later.
Maybe the dancers will help me, because I'm a bit rusty.
Yeah. And I have two more questions, and then I want to open up to the public, so get your questions ready, please. First of all, I wanted to ask, you talked a lot about battles and the different contexts for breaking and for performing this dance form and this art form. You yourself, you were part of the most influential crews from France, in my view. Créteil Style, Def Dogs, Fasté. There were a lot of like, these are really like the crews that laid the groundwork of a specific sort of French style that to me is really the most richest form of breaking in Europe. And
thank you.
You won the Battle of the Year multiple times, the breaking world championship, and you teach at Sciences Po at the university, and also you create theater pieces, as we have seen, on a very high level. So you move with your dance and with your movement forms in really different contexts. Where's your home? Like, where do you feel most at home? In which context, and what do the different contexts give you?
Well, I think what has always helped me think is to be in different contexts all the time. For instance, my family was more like my parents, my mom was a teacher, my dad was working in cinema, and they really were not into that kind of hip hop world, club, anything. And when I was with my cruise, I traveled the world, and I saw a lot of countries and a lot of people who, when hip hop was really high in the whole world. And so it's like I have to navigate between different languages, and the thing is, I try not to change when I change context, even though sometimes the words I use are more slang in one context or another. But I think my goal actually was to make the link between like the underground hip hop scene, which everybody thinks is very hermetic, and culture, more academic culture scene. Because it's important for me that people understand what that they could be the dancers, and it's important for me that the dancers understand that the people who are watching them could be them also, that we're all the same and we could all have the need or the want to break dance, and so I'm looking for those kind of universal truths, and that's why I do this job, because I didn't want, and it's not a job, but I didn't choose to be a choreographer. I was a dancer. I studied in physics, actually, and I started to be a dancer, a professional dancer for other companies, aside from my battle background. And I was noticing that the way people saw hip-hop shows and hip-hop culture was not what I felt was right. I felt it was like they were looking at folklore a bit, and that annoyed me a lot, especially because all the people that I wanted to, my family or other people that I wanted to come and see what it was, they always were a bit disappointed and felt a bit, I don't know, like drawn back. And my goal is really to show something, that art is universal, and that when someone is expressing at the depth of their soul, it can talk to anyone, and so there's no boundaries. And that's really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, amazing. Last question from my side, and then I open up. If we talk about both Kung Fu and breaking have this in common, that you have some kind of mentors and people you learn from, and there are different styles within the movement disciplines. Maybe you can talk about your mentors. Who were they? Can you describe your style a little bit? In which direction does it go? What does it mean to you?
Okay. I think what brings us together as breakdancers is the fact that we're all very creative, very open, and we don't want to be like everyone else. So even though we actually learn from watching other people and asking questions sometimes, but it's more by experience than by academic, I don't know. The word.
Setup, yeah.
Yeah.
No formal teaching setup, just
yeah,
like
it's not formal at all. Yeah, it's more like an oral tradition or something, and you have to watch very carefully, and depending on who you see, you can learn different things. And now, as you said, the words of the groups I was in, like Créteil Estai and Deaf Dogs especially, they were both crews where everybody was very different, and they actually never could do a choreography together because everyone had their own style and they didn't want to look like even their own crew. So that's something that's really linking all the hip-hop dancers. And it's very difficult actually to create a show with hip-hop dancers that doesn't bring everybody down so that everybody can look the same. And so a lot of times, and that's one of the things that I didn't like in the shows, in some shows that I might have done in the past as a performer, is that you have to create a choreography together. Like let's say there's 4 of us, and we have to do something that's synchronous and homogeneous. And so I show you a move, and you say, "Oh, no, I can do this move." So we take the easiest way, and that person also says, okay, easier. So we end up doing something that looks academic, actually, which is something everybody agrees on, and I don't like being in those kinds of choreographies. I just hate it. But so what the challenge for me is to bring people together, but by making sure that they don't look the same and they don't force themselves out of their personality and character. So the way I think I like people to be on stage is being strong individuals first, and then sharing with one person, and then sharing with the group, and then we can be a collective. But first you have to be strong and to say what you are, what you think. So for me it's really a form of art, breaking and hip-hop, that the first value is freedom. We don't often talk about it because the hip-hop conundrum is more peace, love, unity, and having fun, but everybody first wants to be free and be themselves, and then when you're free and you're yourself, then you can live in peace and you can have fun. And so that's really special. And I work in the academic field. I teach at the University of Political Science in Paris sometimes, not every year, but it's more teaching people who never ever danced what hip-hop is. So we actually talk a lot, we watch some documentaries, we analyze stuff, and also I teach them dance, but not so that they can be great dancers, just so that they understand what it means and that it hurts and everything. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think you achieved that in the piece. You let everybody express themselves freely and showcase their own style and really showcase their freedom. So yeah,
good then.
You achieved it.
Thanks.
Okay, so now I would like to open up to the public. Do we have some questions from the audience? Yes, here. I'll do it, right? There's a microphone coming up.
Can you tell us something about the soundtrack, which I especially liked?
I think maybe Sébastien is here. Sébastien, t'es là? Vas-y, viens. The guy who made the music with me is here, so...
Let's give a hand of applause for Sébastien, who did the music.
Do you speak English?
I do speak a little English with a French accent. Hello, thank you very much. I didn't expect, I was... You don't want to sit? Wow, a question for me. Because I drove from Paris and I arrived this morning and I can't even walk. So I see this guy dancing crazy. I'm like, how we do this? I'm always stunned over that. 11 hours of car.
So the question was about the music. How did you develop it and how did it come about? That was the question, right?
How did I develop it? Sorry for the French accent. You're better than me for the French accent. You do a better accent.
Since you're the expert, maybe you can tell the process. How did you develop the music? Where did it come from?
It's the second time we work with Anne. And in fact, thank you, Anne, again, for trusting me. We spoke a lot about the how can we say in English, like the spirits. At the beginning, I think we were thinking about the Western kind of stuff, epic. But yeah, it changed a lot. We start from epic. We try to keep this epic thing, but for sure, Anne still wanted to be like, as you say, like very intense. Sometimes I bring like a more melodic stuff or more quiet stuff, and there is quiet stuff in Kata, which is great. But yeah, it has to be really intense. So yeah, it was I mean, it's a pleasure to work with Anne. It's really easy because she knows exactly what she wants. So for me, it's more easy. But at the same time, it's a long process because you need to try things, to propose, and after say yes, yes, no, no. So it's a kind of a long process. Yeah, it took 1 year. I think I wrote like, it's 60 minutes. I think I wrote like 120 minutes music. we put away a lot of things. But no, I mean, yeah, Anne is always saying me like, sorry, I know I can be hard, but like for me, it's more easy, because like she really know what she wants.
And there were like a lot of drums, and there's this
Yeah.
tradition of Chinese drumming, and maybe you can.
I can explain.
yeah.
Sébastien is actually doing all the instruments in the soundtrack. So he's a drummer and a percussionist. So there's a lot of different instruments. There's also some mouth voices and some objects that you recorded. And there's also a bit of sampling, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, I will do this, recording, exactly. And after it can be like, long sound, you traffic it, you sample it, you put effects, you traffic it. It's not English.
So basically,
you change the sound with a lot of effects. But like everything, I think there is like 3 or 4 sample sound, but it's not from me. But everything is recording and transformed.
So you played all the instruments.
Yeah.
So you're the one-man orchestra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes in the night I can have 4 legs, 4 arms.
But it was very important for me that it would be more acoustic, like as if there's some kind of warm drum music that's always telling the dancers to move because there's danger ahead or something like that. And I didn't want it to be electronic or 2 samples. So it's mostly organic acoustic music that he played. And so it was very important for me because I wanted a tribal-like feeling and something that relates to a kind of trance mood with something that resonates really inside. And I like bass also. I always tell him there's too much high frequencies, so always the low, so that there's room for dance. And I don't usually work with music that has emotion in it already, because I feel that it would be too easy to put a romantic music and to do like a duet with a girl and a boy, for instance, on a romantic note. I like the music to be a kind of ninth dancer that they work with, like as if the drummer was on stage and he was challenging them to something, and they respond to it, and they have to always be sharp. Also, something that's important is that the choreographies are not set on specific parts of the music. They have to always be sharp and respond to what's happening, and that makes it more lively, and it's very important for me. So things are not fixed. They're more like going with in partnership with the music.
Some improvisation parts.
There's a lot of improv in the show.
Yeah, the challenge is more that it's kind of esoteric music. It could be like, you could call it like kind of free, kind of esoteric, but the challenge for me is like trying to make 60 minutes of hip-hop music still, even if it's like acoustic, even if it's like organic, not really always something too much hip-hop. It's not, it's hip-hop, but it's not like what we used to hear in hip-hop. And that's really what I love in the work of Anne, is that it's still hip-hop, even in the music and the relation between music and dance. I really like that. And it's so you need to help the dancers, but still like they can be free on the music. That's a great thing, I think.
Definitely. I want to buy the soundtrack later. We have one more question here. Are there more questions? At the moment? No? Okay.
When I came in...
Thank you, Sébastien.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Team August.
Yeah, one more comment about the sound. When I came in and heard the sound, we could hear it before it started, right? I was so happy. I thought, for sure, they are real instruments. I think the recording and actually the acoustic system was amazing. It was really full and real. I also enjoyed really what you mentioned, the individuality within the choreography. I think that was fantastic. And everyone was alive and could do their own thing, but still they were a group. I have a more critical question, if that's okay. Only because you say you also did or do capoeira. I filmed capoeira in Brazil, and I used to do time ago. And the one thing I missed in this show is the music was perfect, and it was a martial. It pushed everything on a martial level, kind of dangerous and existential. And as much as I enjoyed the dances, I did not feel danger. So I didn't feel, and it was a bit too friendly. If you compare it with something that is very common in capoeira, where you stand there, you are in the roda, everyone is playing music, and you know if, okay, they are just edging, like this is still, they don't want to hurt each other, but just one split of a second and they could. So it's going fast and close, and of course very short, but I just wonder, because you know it's what...
I understand what you mean, and I think it's true, because it's dance and not fights. Actually, also, what I feel about fights is that, in this show, in any case, is that we have the ability to fight, we want to fight. Well, at least if you acknowledge that part of yourself, you have the ability to be a fighter and to be violent. Everybody has that part in them. But what I was trying to say in the show also was that that part in our world of today has no means of expression, and so it gets relegated to clubbing and to video games and to seduction, and so that's kind of what it's going towards in the show. It's going from maximum similarities to the fighting spirit or ideal in the first part of the show, to something more contemporary with the everyday world, where you have to fight to be standing in a group. You have to you're faced with the judgment from the others. You're faced with being anonymous in a crowd, stuff like that. And the third part of the show is more it's becoming banal. I don't know if you say that. It's becoming.
I think that exists in English. Yeah.
Yeah, it exists.
Yeah.
Normalized. The fight is normalized, and so it goes somewhere else. It goes into play, into gaming, and so at the end, there's no fight left, and so it really goes in that direction in what I'm trying to convey with this show. And also, I don't think the dancers wanted to have too much weight or danger. We tried some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu exercises, but it was a bit too. It was a bit too hard because usually also it's practiced on floors that are mats. They have mats, and so it was too rough. And I didn't want to do fights. I didn't want to make it seem like they're really fighting. I just wanted to show the similarities and how the styles of movement and of the way of behaving can be similar to what you feel in a fight. But I think some of them don't fight in life. You never fought ever, as most of us also never have in real life. So it's more a kind of search for an other self, like us, that is more connected to our animal feelings and to the earth and to direct contact or behavior with partners. So that's something that we start from, and we go away from it. Yeah.
Are there more questions? There's one in the back. And I can assure you, if you go into a breaking battle, they will be really dangerous, and you will be scared for your life. The dancers are really, really like. I'd be scared in a battle. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Hi, Anne. It's great to see your journey since the first time that I met in New York, 2006, when you were in those breakdowns battles, participating. And I have a big question. What is your next project that you're really excited, and how can we follow you on I don't know, Instagram or Facebook? Or, I mean, I follow you, but this is for the rest of the people.
Thank you, Maurizio.
Yes.
I'm working on a show that is coming out in October. It's called À mon bel amour. So it's a show for 8 dancers, and they're actually from different backgrounds. So in Kata, for instance, it's people who most of them know each other, and they feel they have a lot of physicality and spirituality that is common values and everything. And for my next show, I decided to take people that are very different. So there's 3 hip-hop dancers who are doing different kinds of dances, but there's also a voguer, a crumper, a ballet dancer, a contemporary dancer, and so all of them are very different. And I'm researching what dance means. So it's really, I was trying to talk about that earlier to answer one of your questions. It's really watching what people are doing, and they are very different, but there are some things that they have in common, and they want to express some things, not in the same referentials, not in the same way. Sometimes they project the image of themselves really far. Sometimes they use a small space, or they go inside themselves, like in cramping, for instance. And so my research was, let's try to bring those people who have nothing in common together and see how they can be a collective. And so it's a very difficult research. I'm in the middle of the process now. So I really go into what symbols, what it means to dance with one part of your body, what can you do with your hands, how do you show emotion through postures or gestures, what sort of contact do you have with someone, depending on what background you have. And I try to take the images of, for instance, ballet and twist them around with something that really doesn't match with ballet, so that you can understand ballet another way, for instance, and same thing with other disciplines. So what we're looking for is what links us together, despite the fact that we're all from very different backgrounds, for real, because we're doing different disciplines and we don't have the same social communities, and we don't even talk the same language sometimes. I mean, we speak French, but we don't talk about dance the same way. So for me, it's a lot of research, a lot of looking at what people want to express, trying to understand them. And it's going really well, and we're premiering in October in France. There's maybe 20 shows next year, something like that. So, it's actually co-produced by Pact Zollverein in, I don't remember the name, Essen. Okay. So I think it would be there next year, so you can come and see it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm also doing a lot of other stuff. You can check my website, compagnieparterre.com, and we have a Facebook. I think the Facebook is also Compagnie Parterre. I don't have Instagram.
Old school like that. Yeah, so my friend Amigo here in the audience, he always says, don't have like one-sided nutrition in terms of your movement. Like maybe that's also something that you can draw from the next piece, that everybody learns from each other, and that there's this big exchange, because if you eat one-sided, your body will become one-sided as well. And So I think it's a great way to exchange and to learn from each other, and sounds very interesting. I'd be amazed to watch the piece. I have 2 more questions, but maybe we can loosen up the round a little bit. And since the name of the piece was kata, and a kata, maybe you can explain what a kata is and then show the audience one kata. Because in hip hop, we learn from each other and everybody learns from everyone. So I want at least, and I want you guys to also learn at least one short section of a kata.
I'm going to ask the help of Yanis. Can you come, Yanis? No?
The dancers are away, huh? So it's up to you.
They're not there? Okay. Well, can you go and get him?
Or you? Yeah?
Santiago, je t'avais pas vu. Merci.
Yeah.
So, Santiago is going to show you something that relates to one of the choreographies.
Let's give a round of applause for our
you.
teacher. Est-ce que tu peux montrer une combinaison de kata,
de kata
au public?
Vrai kata ou de break?
C'est à toi de décider.
Okay. Ouais, ok. Yes.
So can you stand up if you want?
Yeah, let's stand up.
Maybe
let's stand
come
up,
closer. So it's going to show you a small extract from the beginning of the show. So we try to mix the breaking and the spirit of katas.
Left foot goes to the front, right back to the back. Yeah. Awesome work, guys. Let's keep going. Thank you.
The first movement I do in the show. We don't have all the same choreographies because we have different roles, but this is the first move I do with other dancers. That's all.
Thank you.
Merci, Santiago.
That was
How does
awesome.
it feel? How does it feel?
Huh?
Do you feel different? You should. I think you're different.
So how did you work? Did you develop the choreography individually with each artist and then brought it together?
Actually, I asked them, I told them I would like this kind of choreography. Can you each work on like 2/8? And then I go around and I say, oh, okay, can we take this from what you've done? Can we add this? Can we put this in the middle? And maybe I change a move, or we do it different, we change the rhythm. So it's more like that. Or sometimes I make them work by pairs, so that they try to do something together first, and then if it works together, then we make the others learn it. Yeah, but there's not so many choreographies in the show. There's a lot of choreographies in the beginning to show the kind of formal idea that we have of what a fight is, and so that's how we worked for that. Yeah.
Do we have more questions in the audience? So maybe 1, 2 last quick questions.
Sure.
So what amazed me was that there was a constant flow of movement to the right. Most of the dancers always move to the right.
Yeah.
What's the meaning behind this?
Yeah, I thought about that when you asked that question about danger. So the idea was that there's a danger coming from the left, and everybody flees towards. It's like for me, it's like the timeline kind of. So first they don't face it, then they start to stop, then they start to face it, and they move against it. It's kind of what I wanted to show. And sometimes the time passes and things go. So I really wanted to work with that idea of, it's like a cinematographic idea. And also there's the colors change in the show, and it's like we have a different scene. It's somewhere else, it's different, but it's the same idea transformed. So it's this idea of things follow you, you have to face them, and if you don't face them, they will follow you.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. Any more questions from the audience? So, yeah? So again,
Yeah,
the question for everybody, maybe the question was whether she took like existing katas and developed them further, or created her own, or yeah.
Yeah, it was a question that I asked myself in the beginning. As I said, my husband is a martial arts teacher, and he showed me a lot of videos, and we talked about it. And I thought it would not be a good idea to reproduce some stuff, because they're not martial artists; they are dancers, and so I just tried to ask them to move in a certain way, like I said, fight spirit. Imagine also that they have specific people that they fight against, close or far, and to change directions as some imaginary opponents could come against them, like it's done in a kata. So it's more the idea of a kata that I tried to keep, My wish was to try and make a breaking kata, so to maybe show if breaking was a fight form, what a breaking kata would look like, what moves would we use to oppose an adversary, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the last roundup before we leave for the nice summer night. What continues to amaze me about hip-hop culture and in all the different contexts is that just the amazing turn it took. Like, if you look at where it really comes from, there's so many traditions that date back to West Africa and that came to the Americas through the slave ships, and people continue to develop their cultural traditions, especially African Americans, through oppression, through racism and everything, and found empowering and resisting ways of moving, of doing music, of doing art, of doing what we love. And this culture then comes back around the globe and brings together all these different people from all around the globe and gives us such deep insights and has such a spiritual philosophy and such an intellectual impact behind it. That's, for me, still like can't wrap my head around it. It's so meaningful. And maybe you can tell us what hip-hop culture gave you and what empowerment you took from it, and like in terms of friends, people, insights about yourself, whatever.
I think we should not forget that it's not just an Afro-American dance, it's also very, there was a lot of influence from Latino people and all other communities, even all communities actually. It's more something that could only exist in a setting with multicultural people. And that's the mixing of the cultures and being close to people who are different, like, that made them want to do something that was more contemporary. So for me, actually, hip-hop is a form of contemporary dance, and it's a universal contemporary dance. I think it's really something that was created in a historical background. The beginning of how do you say, of mondialization, of people being in big cities mixed together and things like that. So, and it's great because it was when people were forced to move together in close in big buildings, and they had to be around people who were different from them and everything. They chose to create something together, mix or compete, but in the same culture. But and that's the first thing that people wanted to do when they were brought together. So I think it gives a strong message to us. The first thing we want to do is learn from each other and try to create something together. And sometimes it gets lost, or sometimes you don't think about it, but it's very strong, and I think that's the message of hip-hop for me.
Yeah, cool. So thank you so much, Anh Nguyen. Let's have a final round of applause for Kata, for Anh Nguyen. Amazing piece, amazing artist. Let's close off the session with the beginning. So we do the full circle like we do in hip-hop. So, how did you like Kata? They flow like water. Okay. How did you like Kata? They flow like water. Have you seen Kata? Okay, once more. How did you like Kata? They flow like water. Have you seen Kata? Okay, thank you. Final applause for Anh Nguyen and Kata. Great piece. Thank you so much.